Let's see.
Now there's KK, and then he stopped. Look, like she's just like, yeah, I'm out.
She is not having such a good time.
Oh my!
Not having such a good time, Kathleen Kennedy. Although it is questionable whether she even knows at that point if her beloved Star Wars hotel has been shuttered. She is going to find out as she exits, and that is no mistake from the company, I guarantee.
And whether she's checking her phone or the media and press ask her the question, like, "Hey, what do you think about this?"
You don't think she had an aide come into the theater and kind of like tap her shoulder?
It could have been that way. I will say, here's why I don't think that she knew going in. I don't think that she knew going in because why would it be planned that way? There's no way in the world she would have agreed to it. And if she didn't agree to it, then she didn't know about it because it would have ruined her time. So it's just, this boggles my mind. There's no other explanation that I can come up with. And chat, if you've got one besides the crying Kathleen Kennedy emoji, which we love it, you guys came up with it. It's your baby that you've made, and we love that you did that. But if you can come up with a reason for them to drop this news as she was entering the theater, have at it. I don't know one. Now, we do have, we've got more breaking news. We've got to stay with all of this breaking news. We'll come back to the super chats. But again, stuff's happening out there in the real world, and we've got to cover it.
This is one of those ones that you have to explain it because it sounds like an alien thing. Please go ahead. I'll explain what I mean by that later.
I'm intrigued. Indiana Jones 5 gets lukewarm 5-minute can ovation as Harrison Ford says an emotional goodbye. This by Zach Sharf and Ramin Satude. Now, what concerns me about this is we want this to be a good movie. We want Harrison Ford to go out on a high note. But if this was lukewarm, then perhaps Harrison Ford was not emotional for the right reasons. I don't know that to be true. We've already seen that Kathleen Kennedy was not necessarily happy during the ovation. Let's read and find out. I have not seen the entirety of the Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny movie, although I have seen a significant portion when it leaked out. It says, it turns out Indiana Jones can be a softie. Harrison Ford fought back tears at one of the biggest premieres at this year's Cannes Film Festival. No expense was spared as Disney jetted its top executives, including Bob Iger, to the south of France for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, the 5th chapter in one of the most celebrated film festivals or film franchises in movie history. Talk about an awkward meeting afterwards between Iger and Kennedy. Oh, here's another thing, folks, now that we know this. Did you notice that in the applause, Iger, nowhere to be seen with that group, nowhere near Kathleen Kennedy? Wow, even more.
I don't know if he would have been sitting down there with the headline cast and like the studio head. He probably had like a box seat somewhere, maybe an aisle down. God only knows, but
perhaps.
I'm picturing
I wouldn't
him
want to be
like
sitting nearby
in the back, like with the bubble opera going on in front, and he's talking to his apprentice and doing a couple evil head turns, talking about some abilities some would find to be unnatural.
All right. Let's get to the big takeaway here. This is something to read. Things are not going well for Kathleen Kennedy. Maybe that's good for us. It's not good for Harrison Ford. Here's what it says.
Paragraph is bad.
The film's elaborate action scenes and witty one-liners delivered by by Phoebe Waller-Bridge mostly received a muted response inside the theater. During parts of the 142-minute film, audience members could be heard whispering out of boredom in French.
2 hours and 22 minutes.
Guys,
Destiny Returns.
Guys, this is not good because let me explain why this is even worse than what you might think.
It's in Variety.
It's in Variety. That's exactly right. Variety has every reason to report this as positively as possible.
On the southern side of France, they call that no bueno.
Oh.
Oh, my God.
Do we need a Phoebe burger now, too? Because I don't know if I put that on buns.
Oh, my gosh. That is unexpected. You would not expect to see Variety come out like that. There must be significant problems with the film for them to do that.
Yeah. No, because they're access media, and the whole thing is they want to retain their access, and so they always want to try and sugarcoat everything as much as possible,
or please those people in power they know who can continue that access.
So to explain what my comment was, the idea of 5 minutes of standing ovation being lukewarm. A normal person who goes to the theaters considers 30 seconds of standing ovation to be amazing. At Cannes, they do 10-minute, whatever. They do these long marathon ovation things. It's a tradition at Cannes. And it sounds psychotic to normal people because it is psychotic. But for Indiana Jones and Harrison Ford at the end of his career to get a 5-minute standing ovation, for that to be lukewarm, that sounds like a sentence written by aliens.
The film's elaborate action scenes and witty one-liners delivered by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, note that they are pointing her out specifically, mostly received a muted response inside the theater. During parts of the 142-minute film, audience members could be heard whispering out of boredom in French. This is disastrous. This could be another Last Jedi. Or worse, considering how many
put that
careers
in the
went in.
article. Like, you could have left the whispering out of boredom.
It's horrendous.
They even decided to use that verbiage.
I feel bad for Harrison Ford. That's my
maybe he was crying out of maybe he was crying out of sorrow.
I'm absolutely stunned at this. This language in this Variety article is just
shocking,
unreal.
I just have to go again to the idea. Is this Iger?
Is this Iger what? Writing the article?
No, well, there's been so much of there's obviously been someone pushing a particular narrative with all of these things at this specific moment. We know that Iger does not like Kathleen Kennedy. I don't think he would intentionally sabotage this movie at this point. I'm sorry.
Are you trying to rip out a heart down there? Steve.
I have a ring on that I wear around the chain around my neck, and I think it was talking to me.
It is a 2 out of 5, and let's say this, everybody. There is every reason for these individuals to give this movie a good review. If they could, they would. In fact, go to the video that I did this afternoon talking about how Star Wars Theory is out there. I mean, Star Wars Theory, a huge Star Wars channel, is apparently taking the gloves off. Says he has a contact who knows the person over the blacklist of the Walt Disney Company and Star Wars, and he's on it, and he's not happy. These websites, these writers, they could be put on that, and apparently they don't care anymore, or it's so bad they can't do anything but. So let's read it, as painful as it must be, or in the case of those of you who think this might truly be the end of Kathleen Kennedy, and it could be, we're there now. The calls will grow after today. Today is the beginning of the end for Kathleen Kennedy, I truly believe. Which is consistent with what I've been saying. I've been saying she'll be gone later this year or into next year, summer at the latest. I think that's coming to fruition. We'll see how it plays out. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Cannes 2023 review. A shabby counterfeit of priceless treasure. Ford gives it his all, but while the 3 original films moved like page-turners, this 5th installment is painfully short of spark.
Can you spell installment with 1 L? I thought it was 2 L's.
Let's see here.
It's the French pronunciation.
It's French.
They're in a hurry.
No, they're using the Kotaku dictionary.
We need at least 3,500 letters that aren't even pronounced.
That's right.
Bringing back Indiana Jones in the 2020s is a potentially risky business when your hero is trafficking in pillaged artifacts. Gotta love this. This is starting off swimmingly. Can he really claim they belong in a museum anymore? Shouldn't he be returning the golden idol to its Peruvian tomb before slotting the poison darts back in their silos and heaving the boulder back up its launch ramp? In his first adventure in 15 years, which had its world premiere at the Cannes Film Festival on Thursday night, Harrison Ford's Dr. Henry Jones dodges these ideological pitfalls as nimbly as he does the actual pitfall ones. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is every inch a replica of the standard Indy experience, with subterranean booby-trapped dungeons, an escape from a Nazi fortress, a chase through a northern African bazaar, and an ever-so-slightly irritating younger sidekick. In this case, Teddy, played by the 16-year-old French newcomer Ethan Isidore, which, let us say, the fact that Short Round is nowhere to be found is a travesty and means nobody cares about this movie. Unfortunately, though, it ultimately feels like a counterfeit of a priceless treasure. The shape and the gleam of it might be superficially convincing for a bit, but the shabbier craftsmanship gets all the more glaring the longer you look. We'll read 2 more paragraphs and then we'll stop. Familiar. At 80 years old, Ford himself really gives it his all, even though the role initially requires him to look like he'd rather be anywhere else. It's now 1969, and just as he retires from his archaeology lecturing post at a New York university, his goddaughter, Helena Shaw, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, some call her Fleabag, tumbles back into his life. She's on a harebrained mission to track down Archimedes' Antikythera, the Dial of Destiny of the title, and after her late father, is that Basil? Basil was driven half mad by the quest. One half of the device sits in Indy's office archive, but the other is goodness knows where, and it's also being hunted by both the CIA and a German scientist, played by Mads Mikkelsen, who Indy thinks he might just have recognized from a scrape in the third. Well, I'll skip that in case we get caught by the algorithm. This adventure comprises the prologue, in which AI technology has been used to pretty convincingly de-age Ford to his Raiders of the Lost Ark vintage, or vintage. So off everyone goes on a globe-trotting chase for the lost cogs, whose ultimate purpose is left so vague for so long that you sometimes sense that the film is trying not to spoil itself. Well, I think that's sufficient for us to see where this is going. If this is how it's being received out of the film festival, then God only knows how it's going to be received by fans, or shall we say, not received, because it seems to me this is going to now bomb at the box office.
What did Luke say in The Last Jedi? This is not going to go the way you think.
Not the way Kathleen Kennedy thought, and I now wonder, was Harrison Ford displeased at the theater?
No, I think he was crying because he said, finally, I don't have to deal with that nag and the other nag at Lucasfilms. I can finally retire, relax, and not have to deal with any more Indiana Jones.
And enjoy that dump truck full of money they drove up his driveway.
The only thing that actually has substance right now from Disney, their money.
For now.
We do have to cover this real quick. This out of Yahoo Sport, another review coming in. This from David Ulrich. And this one says, if I can scroll to it here, this is what we're seeing time and time again now as these are coming in. It's just terrible. Not only is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny an almost complete waste of time, it's also a belabored reminder that some relics are better left where and when they belong, if only any previous entries in the series had taken great pains to point that out. These are vicious.
I felt that in my soul.
This is going to get real bad, folks. Real bad.
They're not holding back.
Wait a minute.
No.
We've been saying that for how long now?
This
I'm
is
loving
vicious.
this. I'm on the other side of the glass, just like, get him, yeah.
I'm
I
already
said
hitting
that
the
with
bourbon.
Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. There are 3 Indiana Jones movies.
Yeah, that was terrible.
That's really
All right, keep them rolling, Jonas.
We're now
we had to break for that. That's what we're seeing.
Yeah.
From review after review, from people who have every incentive to be as kind as possible. The industry needs this movie to do well, and the industry can't defend it.